So I'll call to order this meeting of the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability at 6 p.m. and I'll go through the roll. Okay, Tara Dunderdale.
Kind of looks like she froze for a second.
Oh yeah, I'll circle back around. I'll say Jamie Scholl next since she's driving and has her video on.
Looks like she froze.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I'm here.
Perfect, thank you. Jamie is here virtually. Okay, Justin Vassell, I'm here. Matt Austin.
Present.
Present. Zero Rose.
Here.
Here, virtual, good. John Eldon.
Here.
Here. Dave Rollo. Not here. Quentin Gilly, not here. Hunter Holly.
Here.
Here. Jamie, we've got Jamie already. Evan Nix, not here. And Shengwai Shu, not here. And then we'll go back around to Tara Dunderdale.
I'm here, sorry.
Tara's here, no problem.
Connection.
Okay, perfect. I just pulled up the packet and realized that I forgot to include the agenda in the packet, so
Oh, I see.
my apologies for that. But I do have it here in front of me. So next we've got approval of the agenda. So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
In a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, any discussion, anything that anyone wants to change about the agenda? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
All opposed? No? No? Okay, any abstentions? I always forget about the abstentions. All right, the agenda is approved. Now we'll go to approval of the minutes. So the only one that we have before us today is from March 11th. I got it out the door this morning, so I don't know if...
Evan in the waiting room here too.
Oh,
Looks like he
Ah,
just popped
perfect.
up.
All right, we got him in here. Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, approval of the minutes for March 11th, 2025. So I sent that out this morning. I don't know if folks had enough time to look it over or not, so I'll suggest that we approve it, but if anyone hasn't had a chance to look at it and would like to, we can easily just add it to the list for the next meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve from Matt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and then discussion. Is there anyone who would like more time to review these minutes before we approve them today? Okay, I'm not seeing any activity. So then we'll move to a vote then. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 11th, 2025, say aye.
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 All opposed, no? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes from March 11th, 2025 are approved. And next time we'll have some more to go through. That brings us to public comment. So we've got 10 minutes set aside for this, up to 3 minutes per person. I don't see anyone in the gallery today. Is there anybody on Zoom? All right, that was quick and easy. Okay, so then we'll go to reports from commissioners. So that is in the packet, at least the chair's report. Okay, cool. So we can go to the first real page here. So this is our org chart as of today. So we still got the 3 vacancies right now, one from the Monroe County Commissioners and then 2 of the mayoral seats there. And I know you had said that that there have been some folks that are being interviewed and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I don't have anything new since I last emailed you. So yeah, a couple that have been passed on to the mayor,
Mhm.
and then Monroe County not being very responsive. But we'll give them another reminder.
yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you. Great, and then, so yeah, so no changes since last time really, but we do have an upcoming farewell here, Hunter Holly. is moving up to Indianapolis, so that's very exciting. And yeah, effective July 1st, right?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for all your time on BCOS. And
Well, thank you all for having me. Yeah, it's been an honor.
excellent. Okay, on the next slide, we've got funding and awards, really just the working group grant awards here, and that is not showing up very well on the screen. I'll adjust this for next time, but you can kind of get the idea here. So I put a new graphic up here, which is sort of two progress bars, one showing how far we are through the year, and then one showing how far we are through expending all of our $10,000 of working group grant awards. So you can still get the gist easily enough on the screen here, even though the gray isn't showing up. We're about halfway through the year, and we're about 0% in awarding these funds. And I think if memory serves, we kind of have to have everything in before December this year for all of the, the accounting stuff to make it to happen. So really, we're looking at our November meeting, I think, as being the last time we could maybe approve some of these things. So that's why the cutoff is a little bit ahead of the end of the year. But there are some things potentially on deck. So, Matt has been working on the Bukashi proposal, and hopefully that'll be ready to go here soon. Shanghai was interested in doing like a sustainability interview series, like where you bring guest lecturers basically to educate the public. And he was thinking about using some funds to help set that up. And then there's this downtown garden installation, which we're going to hear about later today. We've got Dan Huber coming to talk about that. So, so these award amounts here are just sort of speculative at the moment. Nothing written in stone there. And hopefully we can get a few things sort of in the hopper here pretty quick so that we can catch up on that bottom progress bar. Any questions about the award situation before we move on?
Well, the green building we're having to wait till June 20th.
You're cutting out pretty bad, Zero. We're only getting every few words.
Looks like he's frozen in now.
Yeah.
Oh, Evan's on now.
What you're trying to ask is that
And
the
the
funding
funds.
for, oh, okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, to demonstrate that the funds are used as stated before you can ask for the next one. We are planning on doing another installation, possibly with the waste reduction district. And we're going to try to ask for a little more because that's been the scenario that until we complete the first project, we can't ask for more or, go over that $1,000 mark. So I'm wondering if that's still the policy on it, that a first time project has to keep it at $1,000.
I'd have to look at the standard operating procedure for that again. I don't think there's like a strict rule on that. I think that's sort of the general rule. And if, there was a good case for making an exception, then I think we could, try to make that case.
I'll note it to ask Sean about.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll double check with Sean, Zero, but yeah. Okay.
My understanding is that was just the suggested.
Yeah.
It wasn't a hard rule by any means.
And I think it was intended for not having one project that blows through 80% of the funds in the first month and then there's nothing left over for the rest of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we see that this adds up to 8,500, leaving 1,500.
Yeah, and again, all this is tentative, right? So these numbers could change. They're not in stone there. And if there was something else on this list that, say, was asking for 2,000 or something, then I think we'd adjust some of the other things to.
Yeah, well, we were definitely capped at 1,000, and it was very difficult to actually design and get it done for that. It's a very small amount to do much of anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say don't look at this table and say this means that we only have 1,500 left to spend. I would say, think about what your proposal would be and how much you would actually need for that, and then we'll get it on this table, and once we have all that in front of us, we can make some decisions about where we want to adjust to get to that 10,000 level.
Yeah, and as Evan came in there, we are, going to be getting the funds June 20th, and then we'll be building in July, and so maybe by the next meeting, we'll have the next proposal in.
Cool. This is for the Cobb Bench project?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And yeah, even if you have not a full proposal yet, but you have an idea and a ballpark amount, you could just let me know in an email and I'll put it on this table, even if there's not an official proposal for next time. Because I don't have an official proposal for some of this stuff either.
Yeah, and can you tell me everybody who's there? I can't quite tell yet. We've got Shoal, Rollo, me, I see Evan now, you, Tara, I get Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yep.
that the total of people?
Here in the room, we've got Hunter and John and Matt and Jolie and myself.
Dave Rollo is not here.
Yeah, Dave Rawls not here.
Oh, Rollo's not, okay. Alrighty.
Cool. Okay, next slide, news and updates. So we've got some sort of internal updates, things that I've been kind of working on or thinking about here. And I'm trying to flesh out these slides a little bit more just to give some more updates of things that are usually just swimming around in my head, but would be good for people to kind of see and have an idea of. So bylaws reform is one that we've talked about already. We've sort of already gone through the first step of that, which was identifying which sections might need revamping. And so I'm sort of partway through the process of actually drafting some new suggested language up that I'll bring back to the commission to take a look at that. I'm hoping for next month in July, having a sort of draft that people can look at and start marking up. We'll probably do something similar to what we did with the annual report, where we can maybe have an initial discussion here in the meeting, and then folks can send specific comments on wording and things like that, through a spreadsheet sort of thing. The annual report, so we approved that at our last meeting, so the next step would then be putting together some slides to present at City Council. They're in recess right now, or if they're not right now, they're about to be, and they'll be back sort of later in July. So I'll ask to get on the calendar sometime once they come back. It might take a little while though. But yeah, I'd like to bring back those slides, which will they'll obviously be based on the report that everybody approved, but I think it would be good to see the specific slides, because in a short talk I won't be able to cover everything that was in the report. So I'll ask for approval at that on that probably at the next meeting as well. A commissioner's handbook. This is something we've sort of identified as something that is sorely needed for a long time, and I sort of got started on this a little bit a few months ago and haven't done a whole lot with it yet, but hoping to pick it up again. The idea here is to just have some sort of materials that we can give to, well, everybody, but specifically, especially for folks that are new to the commission and don't understand what the history is or how it works or where to start, having everything kind of in one place. It's like, here's where to find the bylaws. Here's, how these things work. And, I think that would be really good for, not only improving that onboarding experience, but also retaining some institutional memory. If there's some history written in there, right? Because most people don't know off the top of their head, like, what was BCOS doing in 2010? So being able to kind of look back on that and get caught up on everything that the commission has done up to this point can be really helpful for setting the stage for new ideas. I'm aware that the city is potentially developing something similar. They're working to do some sort of revamping of boards and commissions and things like this. I know there was a city, like an individual staff person who's going to be kind of dedicated to working with boards and commissions, and so they may also have some sort of handbook that they give out to all the commissions and boards, that'll walk you through things like the structure of the boards within the city and open door law stuff that everybody needs to know. And so if and when that comes out, then we'd make sure ours just sort of reflects the BCOS specific stuff and refers back to that handbook when it comes to broad things. And then another thing that I'd like to work on, just kind of from the internal side of things, is a set of standard operating procedures. So this kind of maybe sounds like bureaucratic and boring, but it can be really useful to have really short, to the point explanations of like, you want to do X, here's the procedure for how to do it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you have to do it this way, but like, here's the recommended way of doing this. Like, for you want to submit an agenda item, do X, Y, and Z. There, you've submitted an agenda item. You want to draft a resolution, here's the procedure for that. And then officer duty stuff, things, right? So, I've got my own way of like putting together an agenda and getting things out, but, so whoever comes next might be like, I don't know what to do. I've never done this before. So it'd be good just to have some kind of playbook that folks can follow, right? So I'm going to start putting together a couple of those and bring them forward, when I can, for folks to provide input on. A couple goals there, just to increase efficiency by taking some of that guesswork out of the process. Like how does BCOS actually do this and that? Oh, you can just go look at the SOP for that. Improve commissioners' understanding about how we get work done, and then hopefully facilitate some knowledge transfer to future members. A year from now, the board may look very different than it does right now. We don't want people having to learn the ropes every single time they come in. Okay, on the next slide here, I've got a new slide for commissioner focus areas. So I talked a little bit about this at the last meeting about getting folks to sort of put their name down on something that they're interested in, and it could be something very specific or it could be something very vague. I gave some homework to everybody to shoot me an email at some point once you've had a chance to think about it, and send me what you want to go on this list. So I sort of fleshed out mine a little bit. The three other members that I have here, I sort of deduced from conversations I've had with them before. So if your name has stuff by it up here and you don't like those things, let me know and I will change them. But this is just based off of what I know folks are interested in and what they've been working on. But there's lots of blank spaces in there. So if there's a blank by your name, start thinking about that. The other point I want to make about this is that, the goal is not necessarily to have every single individual commissioner off doing their own thing and then sending things back to the commission. It might make sense for, people to kind of pair up and, tackle an issue or a problem together or something like that. So, don't feel like if you see something on here that speaks to you, and you're like, oh man, Matt's already got that thing. That could be your thing too. That's okay to dupe up. But the idea here is for everyone to sort of have in their head, okay, this is the sort of thing that I care about, that I'm trying to think about. How can BCOS do something about this, something actionable, and sort of having a more structured way to get those things done.
Jamie raised a hand.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
I'm not usually using Zoom on my phone, so my apologies. I hope you can see me. I think you're supposed to be able to see me.
Yep.
I had a question in regards to Food Resilience Working Group. As I came onto the commission, there were working groups, and they had other residents of Bloomington as a part of that working group. Is that something that we can, is that kind of what the point is of the working group, to get our residents involved in the commission?
I think that that's certainly possible, and I think BCOS has done that before in the past. Obviously, the working group would need to be run by a BCOS commissioner, but I don't think there's any reason we couldn't have non-commissioned people serving, but participating in that working group, which is chaired by somebody from BCOS. So, yeah, I think so.
It just seems like there's a lot of work and there's only so many of us, and if we're going to have a large impact in getting others involved, and maybe, I don't know if this is appropriate, Justin, but to know a structure of what a working group needs to be, or does it matter at all, or a minimum, maximum number of individuals involved, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's nothing in the bylaws that talks about working groups, so there's nothing formal right now that says what a working group has to look like. But if we wanted some sort of structure for a specific working group, we could always do that through a resolution. So we as a commission could pass a resolution that creates that working group and then lays out what the structure of that working group is. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I don't know. And does anybody else have any other thoughts about these focus areas, the approach?
I think it's a good idea to have that so that people can, I mean, if you don't have a goal, you're not going to hit it. So might as well.
Is that more an internal identification, or is that posted somewhere as like a, as a resource for folks in the community?
Like this focus area
Yeah.
thing? It's sort of meant to be internal. Yeah, I mean, obviously these things are posted publicly in a sense, but yeah, it's meant for us to be aware of what everyone's sort of working on. And
If you're aware of what they're working on, you could join.
yeah, exactly.
Got a hand there.
Perfect. Tara, go ahead.
I emailed you just now because I forgot to do my homework. But I'm also interested in the AI and data center work, if you want to list me in there, but also think the area that I've kind of taken on already is in the public education and partnership work and like public outreach for BCOS. So that's something I can continue to focus on.
Awesome. Cool. If you have anything specific, well, you said you sent me an email, but if anyone has anything specific they want to go on here, you can send me that language, or I can, put down some general stuff. So yeah, perfect. Public education, outreach, and then maybe some of the AI stuff as well. Awesome. Cool. Does anyone else want to have something ready to go that they want to share now? And I'll jot it down so I can add it to the list.
And these would be, if we had like project ideas or things that we wanted to do in this area, this would be also like an appropriate use of the working group funds, right? If we want to.
Yeah, I think so.
Fund a project. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, I will encourage folks to get that homework in. Only dock 10% for the first month. Yeah.
So green building and the food resilience working groups. For me.
Oh, okay. Green building, was it?
And food resilience.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Got it. Thank you. Okay, great. If there's nothing else on that, then we'll go to the next slide, which I think. Okay, yeah. I don't know if this diagram is more helpful or less helpful. It just makes things more complicated, but this is kind of how I had been thinking about it. And again, this is sort of a follow-on from what we had talked about last time. Is if we've got everybody who's got these things that they're working on, and people are starting to come up with ideas for like policy recommendations we could make or resolutions that we want to pass, then hopefully, ideally, we'll sort of have a steady flow of like actionable stuff that's coming to us, and that would be great. And if it's the case, then that means we will need to also make sure that we're efficiently working through that as it comes in. So, we talked a little bit last time about, sort of agenda prepping and, what should go on there, what should be saved for a working session versus a business meeting. And so this is sort of like the way I had it visualized in my mind. So this is like you've got a time axis on the bottom going from left to right. You've got various BCOS meetings, right? And then, yeah, again, sorry, these light shades aren't showing up on the screen very well. But yeah, here's a setup where you've got 3 commissioners that are working on some project, and each of these little dots represents some level of progress that they've made on that front. And we might not hear about those, incremental, progress at every single meeting through an update, but there might be times where, a certain threshold is reached where it's then ready to come before the commission. So, for example, Commissioner 1 makes a couple, instances of progress on whatever they're working on, and then they realize that they're kind of stuck at a point where they need some feedback from the commission before they really know how to proceed any further. And so that would be a good example of like, get that thing on the agenda and we can all discuss. So that would be some sort of presentation with a discussion as sort of an action attached to it. And then Commissioner number 2, same thing, except for they get to a point where they think they've got a resolution kind of ready to go or something like that. And so then they put that on the agenda. And then on the top there, Commissioner number 3, I don't know if, this may not happen quite as often, but sometimes things come up that are maybe time sensitive that we just didn't know was coming up, and we want to discuss how we want to proceed, or maybe we do want to take, like pass a resolution for something that just came up last month, So that's another good example of something that should end up on an agenda sooner than later for a business meeting. So I'm not going to show this at every meeting, but it was sort of a visual that I had in my mind, and just wanted to offer that up as a way of thinking about things. This next slide is one that I'll put sort of going forward to give folks an idea of sort of what we have sort of in the hopper coming up for BCOS. So I've separated these tables out: business meetings, work sessions, and so sort of planning out what the agenda is going to look like. We've got a couple things queued up for the next meeting, and a couple of those are tentative items, they're maybes. So we might have a working group grant proposal potentially for Bokashi stuff. We might have one for the downtown garden installations, depending. And then there's a couple things that I had mentioned earlier that I was hoping to bring to the group next time, these amended bylaws draft, and then the slides for the 2024 annual report. And then I guess the only other thing that we kind of have on the radar right now is it would then be a second reading of the amendments to the bylaws where we actually adopt it. We do that in 2 stages. So that's what we have right now. I've only got a few slots for each of these meetings because things fill up real fast. And, before you know it, a couple things like this, which is none of the like routine stuff like approving minutes and public comment and all that, just the kind of meat of the meeting. If each of these things takes 15, 20 minutes, 3 items puts you at an hour. We've only got an hour and a half, right? So it fills up pretty quick. So it's good to prioritize. It would be great if we have so many things in the queue that we're like struggling to fit it all in. That'd be a good problem to have. And by kind of laying it out like this, a few meetings in advance gives us an opportunity to kind of figure out maybe where we need to strategically place certain agenda items. Again, if there's like a time constraint on one of them, then maybe it gets boosted up the queue, right? But I'll show this every time just so folks kind of know what's on the radar, what's coming up, and maybe where there's opportunity, right? Like if you're thinking September, you might be able to come up with something. Well, the agenda's open right now, so that'd be a good slot. For the work sessions, I think this is maybe the 3rd meeting in a row that I've come here saying, sorry, we didn't have a work session last time. I've had a lot of issues finding a place to schedule those, but I was able to schedule one for June 24th in 2 weeks. So that one's locked down, and I think the one that we would do in July is available too, so I'm probably just gonna book that now to get it. But I'm curious if anybody else knows of any alternative locations that would be a good spot for those. Let me know. Shoot me an email. It needs to be preferably free, or if not free, very cheap, like $5 or $10. It needs to be publicly accessible to everybody because these need to be open door meetings. So it can't be at like a pub where it's 21 plus. And preferably somewhere that's relatively centrally located so people don't have to like work hard to get out to the location. And oh yeah, go ahead, Tara.
Just about the work session, I can't go be at that one.
Okay.
I'm gonna be traveling for work that week. And so I just have a process question about the sustainability assessment report.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've sort of set up this like parallel working process with me and Evan, so we don't run afoul of the open door laws. If Evan is done with his section after that work session and sends it to me, can I then compile it for bringing for the, I guess it would probably be the August meeting, which is more realistic for me anyway. Is that like a manageable process and one that is not going to get us in trouble?
I think it would, because if it's, well, let's see, hang on, let me think, because it's you and Evan, and are those the only two on the subcommittee or whatever?
That's right.
Okay, in that case,
I guess my question is like, does whatever he has need to be presented before the full commission before I combine the report for review, for the line by line review, the way you manage the annual report?
let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
I mean, I would think if you're not modifying anything and you're not debating the merits of what he sent you, you're just
I would just be putting it
line together.
Numbers. It
Should
would be
be
formatting
fine.
for functionality.
Yeah, I would think that would be fine, because
Okay.
then you're not really doing business, It's just an administrative thing. Yeah,
Okay.
but I'll double check just to be sure, and I'll let you know if that's not.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then I just got a little list there for my own organization, mostly about pending minute approvals. I got a little bit of a backlog at the moment. But hopefully at the next meeting we'll get the next two. Okay, this is my recurring slide on upcoming events. Most months there's a green drinks presentation at Upland Brewing. This month it's Earth Vital Signals, an up-to-date minute look at key global climate metrics. So that sounds kind of cool. And then August 12th, IU is doing an inaugural Economic Development Summit. Looks kind of interesting. The theme is the impact of Indiana's flagship. And if you're interested in presenting at that, I think they're still open for proposals, so submitting proposals by midnight tonight. So you can get on that. Otherwise, registering to attend is, you can still do that. And that'll be in Indianapolis on the IU campus. Okay, and then the last slide I have here is nothing for me to present. It's just a slide I'll just include going forward for your reference. It's just resources. So if there's anything you're like, where are those bylaws? If you can get to the most recent packet, you can find links in there. And we'll update this as it becomes relevant. We've got some working group grant stuff in there in case you couldn't remember where to find those either. If you need to learn the procedures for that or the actual application template itself, that is all there. Okay, so that's the end of my report. Any questions overall before we move on to the next item?
I do have a question.
Yeah,
I appreciate you putting all of this together. That's been great. I'm afraid that as I went back and had time to find an email that you had sent regarding process of getting onto the agenda and time frame of who needs to be sent what at what point in time at the end of the day. Where that might be, I don't think that's on the BCOS resolution template. But where might the process be, or maybe create a Google Doc or whatever to share with us all, because I'm really not sure what happened to that email, so my apologies on that, but I still want to follow up. I was thinking maybe I could talk to you on the working group, but that didn't happen, but hoping that I can get on the agenda for July.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's a very good point. And, generally, I've sort of haphazardly sent out emails ahead of meetings saying, please send me agenda items. Sometimes I don't do that, especially if the agenda is already pretty full. So I think this is part of why I want to do a series of operating procedures, because then we can write it down, like, here's the process. That might be the first one to do. Here's the process for submitting an agenda item. And then that holds me accountable, because then I follow that. And then everybody else on the commission knows if they've got something they want to submit, how to do it. So yeah, I will make that number one. But if you've got something that you want to see on the July agenda, and you've got it kind of ready to go, I would say for now, just shoot me an email. And in the meantime, between now and the next time we meet, hopefully ahead of that, I'll put together kind of a document that says here's how to submit an agenda item. And I'll try to get that out.
That involves a link where you submit it, right?
Yeah, that's how I've done it before. There's like that Google form that people can fill out. And that's been helpful because it's got some questions about like how urgent is this, which is good. If you've got a bunch of stuff that won't fit on one agenda, you can bump it to a further meeting or something. But yeah, I might just keep using that or do something different.
On that form, do you have if it's time sensitive, because what I'd be sharing is time sensitive?
Yeah, there is a question for that in the current Google Forms, and I think that would be an important piece of information to collect from folks who are submitting agenda items. Like, is this urgent? Does it need to bump other things down? Yeah. So I would say for you, Jamie, feel free to just send me a direct email, and I'll say it to everybody else too. If you've got like something on the next meeting that you want to see on the agenda, for now, just shoot me an email directly and let me know. And if you've got, visual materials or anything, or written documents that need to be submitted as part of that, do that as well.
And maybe even also have that set up for the next couple meetings as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So something offer in time.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. Yeah, good question. So we'll get something formal in place soon, since that's kind of a critical function.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Okay, any other hands online? I don't see any. All right, so that brings us to the Waste Management Working Group. Matt, do you have anything for us this week?
Yeah, we do plan on submitting the proposal for Bokashi, but the feedback from ESD has been we have to, since we've already committed the Waste Reduction District to the Taste of Bloomington, we have to get commitments from another festival before we can resubmit it. So we're looking at, this Thursday is the Strawberry Shortcake Festival, so we're going to talk to them for 2026, which would still be in that 12-month span. And then we're also looking at Lotus, not the full Lotus, because that's way too big, but Lotus in the Park. That's what they were interested in last year. So we're looking at potentially doing one or maybe both of those under that. So we're waiting for those to get those commitments, and then we have to do some updating with the feedback that was given to us on the proposal. So that will be coming this year. We just don't know exactly when we're going to be able to get those, talk to those entities and get those, if we're even going to get those commitments.
Okay.
So that is, the plan is to submit before November.
Got it. Okay.
100%.
Gotcha. And still aiming for 5,000?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then just had Garden Quest just had a training at the Community Orchard yesterday had somewhere between 10 and 15 households, had a training in May at Will Detmer Park, and then we have been working on some faith communities. And so we have a information session on June 29th at the Unitarian Universalist Church. They're on Fee Lane, Fee Lane, the bypass. And so we have a minimum of 10 houses, but we're shooting for 15 to 20 households committed to that. So that's open to the public to come. It's just a 30-minute info session as well. So there's definitely momentum being built around that. And then there's June 19th from 2 to 3:30. That's I think it's a Saturday at the Community Orchard is another Bokashi training. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, and people are finding it valuable and are starting to adopt Bokashi slowly but surely, and that's the goal.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, and then I've been tabling 2 times a month at the farmers market, promoting Bokashi, but also it's for the Citizens Advisory Committee with the Waste Reduction District, trying to recruit more people there. So if anybody wants to join the CAC to work on waste reduction, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to the ad hoc committee sustainability assessment report from Tara. And I know, Tara, you already mentioned a thing or two about that, but did you have anything else that you wanted to report?
No, just once I don't know Evan's status of his section, but I'll plan to combine them once he's done, and we'll submit that for probably an August agenda item. Just being realistic about my capacity this time of year. I don't know, Evan, if you have additional updates on your section. I know you were working on it last time.
So I guess I have a point where I'm a bit stuck in the sense of trying to get actual numbers of megawatt hours used by the city of Bloomington is kind of tricky. One, because there's a delineation between energy use in the public and private sector, and then also it just isn't anywhere on the websites that I can find. The only thing I can find is CO2 emissions, which I have graphed and ran some linear regressions on to do a prediction for the 2030. I'm wondering if there's any direction. I just called Sean and left a message earlier today, because that's what the chain of numbers ends up leading me to is Sean. But I don't know, I guess I feel a bit confused here in the sense of if I'm pulling numbers from the Climate Action Dashboard, the city of Bloomington obviously already is well aware enough to have created a dashboard about it. So it seems like reporting on that is kind of, overkill maybe, or just something that's already known. And then on the other side of it, if there's information elsewhere, I'm not sure where to find it. So I'm just looking for some advice from you guys.
I was thinking about something similar regarding some of the budget expenditures, because there's one of the things that came up in one of our discussions was the urban forestry department has this set budget that hasn't really changed much in the last 6 years, but there are other ways that the forestry department is getting funded that are not necessarily that line item. And something Justin said at one of the last meetings about the things that we can do as BCOS is request information from the city. So maybe that is where that is the purpose of this report, is to identify some information gaps and request that information from the city that, we can just say what is and say this is what is publicly available or easily accessible to the public about this information. Here is additional information that we as BCOS are requesting the city make available to us or the public in order for the public to whatever policy language we want to write up. Once everybody looks at it, maybe that's a way where you do not have to run down every possible number, but also we can make it clear that these are relevant pieces of data for somebody who's interested in looking at the city's sustainability action.
Gotcha. So the line item on the report is not publicly available information. Please provide this to the public, or at least to BCOS. Yeah. Okay.
And
Good, thanks.
I'd be very glad to help as well. If you want to send emails to me as well, jolie.perry@bloomington.gov. You can add me to
Okay.
that, and I can help to find things, like if it's something that you're not 100% sure if that, if that stat matches like what you're looking for. And yeah, we do differentiate municipal versus, Bloomington community in some of our different stats. So yeah, I'd happy to hash out the details with you.
Yeah, and I think that's also, should be a bit of the function of the commission, is to kind of double check on that stuff, make sure the things are accurate. Not that they're necessarily trying to do any greenwashing or anything, but there have seemed to be things on some of the publicly available stuff that doesn't quite seem to jive or be complete or have all that information. So yeah, I think that'd be a vital thing to do.
I think it's also relevant, I think this report and what we sort of set out as the intention of this report is also an opportunity to synthesize across a lot of these things and potentially make some recommendations as the commission, because it is so much information and it is a lot to absorb, and so we can pull from a lot of these sources and share. I mean, the council has full access to the line items of the budget, but they're not necessarily thinking about them all.
Yeah,
And so we're sort of
some really good.
prioritizing information and pulling it together in the way one would for any kind of like review or analysis. So I think there's still value add, even if what we're using is their data, because it is a making meaning out of the existing data.
Yeah. Do you happen to know if overall electricity use is something that is tracked by the city, or is that like a utility thing?
Like overall Bloomington community, what kind of amount comes from renewable, like that type of a big question? Or,
Oh, yeah,
or
that too, I guess,
municipal?
but I think he was just looking for like the megawatt hour use in a given year or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. We would be able to provide that
Okay.
or extrapolate based on what we know about our installations.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, you should tag Jolie in on that. And
Yeah,
she'll probably be able to help
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah, I'll send you an email shortly.
great.
Thanks, Jolie.
Mhm. Cool. All right. The next item is Council ex officio report, and Councilmember Rallo is not on right now, so that'll bring us to our discussions of topics not the subject of resolutions. So we've only got one today, and it's this idea that's been mentioned of a working group grant possibility for a downtown garden installation. And so we've got Dave Huber with us today to walk us through kind of what this idea is. So yeah, if you'd like to just come up and grab a seat near a microphone somewhere. And I'll let you have the floor.
Awesome. Well, hi everybody. I'm Dave Huber. Thanks for the great work you all do. I actually applied to be on this commission like a decade and a half ago when I graduated from undergrad, and then went to Austin, Texas, and then came back to grad school, and ended up working for the Garden Tower Project. You guys remember that? We had a sustainability dashboard, a little startup in here, so I really admire the work that you guys do. Big fan of sustainable eco living, and happened to be a fanboy of a local gardener actually around here, garden designer, and reached out to Sean Mia and the sustainability department around doing some depaving, and met with Haskell Smith, the urban forester, to find some space to potentially do some depaving projects. And that all kind of started to just come down to actually the best thing to do would be do like an urban meadow in a way. There's this lot, if you scroll down, there's this lot behind Uptown's Cafe. So the city owns, that Haskell Smith helped me identify on the GIS system. If you scroll down one more, please. Right there, you've maybe seen it before on 4th and Washington on the northwest corner there. There's actually currently a sculpture there. If you scroll down one more, there's a photo. I went and checked it out with the garden designer. It's this big kind of empty grass lot. And we thought, man, that'd be cool to have a sweet garden there. Native pollinator garden. And this guy's won some awards if you scroll down a little bit more here. So he actually has worked a little bit with Pete Udoff, who did the High Line in New York City, which is really popular, and this kind of new blend of garden design. You know, it's native, but it's also like strikingly attractive, and so it's a tourism draw, which I think would be great. So actually, I had done a workshop with Talisha Kopic in downtown Bloomington Inc. a few years ago, and ran into her and mentioned this, and they had some extra funds from ARPA, which was great, this kind of recovery thing post COVID, and they've actually, if you scroll down some pricing, so that's me grabbing screenshots of his stuff, but he's $12 a square foot, which includes design and install. And Talisha and DBI, I don't even know if it's DBI, it's this ARPA group that Holly Warren is on as well. They said, hey, we could do 15 to 18K, 18,000. This square footage is actually like 2,200 square feet, but there's a tree that Haskell Smith and the team have recently planted on the north side of that space. So we wouldn't be planting all of it, plus giving some of the kind of funding that I think is maybe available. I spoke with Justin briefly. Reducing the size to about like 80% of this area. So that'd be about 20,000, and our ARPA funds are going to cover 15 to 18. And so if you all are able to, I know you have a limited budget, but pitch in somewhere between 2,000 to 5,000 to see this garden come to life would be really cool.
What's the maintenance plan?
So the master gardeners apparently maintain a similar kind of style of garden on the north side of the square. You've maybe seen that garden, and then the one next to the Wonder Lab, there's like another butterfly garden. So master gardeners are actively maintaining 2 gardens downtown. His style of gardening is very low maintenance. He just did one at Bluestone Tree Services on South Walnut, kind of just near like that Kroger down there. If you haven't seen it, it's stunning. If you ever drive down there, you almost can't miss it. And that he only had to water that once all last summer. So it would probably require watering once or twice the first season, but then it's meant to be self-sufficient. But plants do occasionally not make it. So he said, well, he'd be happy to oversee any group that's maintaining it for free. But there probably would be some watering once or twice if there's a big drought the first time it's planted. He can also plant in the fall, which kind of reduces the need for that. They get a little bit more ingrained. And then the master gardeners might be involved. Yeah.
Do you have a group that's interested in being sort of the point person for maintenance stuff?
We haven't nailed that down. I mean, on my to-do list is to check with Parks and Rec to see if they'd be interested in probably like committing to watering it would be a big thing. But Andrews works closely with the master gardeners, and they continue to do a great job with those 2 gardens that they're already maintaining. So he thought that they'd be, and actually part of their requirement to become or be a master gardener is some version of like community landscaping. So they actually, I forget exactly, said they might actually be thrilled about this because they need projects to go work on to get their hours.
And you said the city owns this?
They do, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's part of why it was picked.
What was the process has the city already signed off on it? And if they haven't, what's the process to get them to?
Great question. So I've spoken to a number of people already in the departments. There's a department of engineering, I believe. Rachel Johnson, maybe. I think I spoke with her, and they said, sounds good. You just have to have the plant list has to be approved, and it's native plants. And so sending in the list to that, but the location didn't have any issues because we picked it out. There's no electrical stuff that's running through. There's no kind of water line utility issues. It's kind of one of the reasons that it was picked. So the engineering department, I forget exactly who I spoke with there, but they said, yep, you're good to go. You should get this plant list approved and get the funding approved, and then we'll do a formal approval process.
Nice.
Yeah.
We have a couple raised hands.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like. Okay, let's see.
My question was answered. It was about if there are any concerns about utilities, so.
Perfect. We'll go to Jamie next.
I guess I have 2 things. One of which you've already somewhat touched upon somewhat extensively, and that is with master gardeners. What, besides watering, knowing that, with gardens of all type, there needs to be some kind of upkeep, weeding, making sure plants are replaced. To rely on volunteers gets tricky, as a community orchard had found out. people get tired or burned out. I understand the Master Gardener program, the way it goes, but without a more detailed plan, I'm hesitant on this, having run some of these types of gardens as well. My second question would be, is there, since this would be thinking of this as a community or a tourist attraction, is there any place that would be designed into this that would allow for people to sit and admire the beauty of the area? I know when there was a bus stop and things in the past that used to be here, there were a number of people who would utilize this area as a social location. And also being right across from the church, there's sometimes overflow, or during Lotus Festival, things like that. So, during the festivals and when garbage and whatever else, as part of that upkeep, seeing that in this plan would help eliminate some of my concerns.
Yeah, can I address that?
Yeah.
Great. I totally agree. I think the maintenance is probably one of the biggest issues with it. His style of planting is like hyper dense. And so he actually did a garden for me, a little verge garden. It was just this like 4-foot by 15-foot space in front of my house, in between the streets and the Prospect Hill neighborhood. And having owned one of his gardens, very, very minimal weeding required. But yeah, I think we'd still need people maintaining that. And then there is that, on the comment of social engagement, there's a tree that's planted there, and I think that'd be a great spot for a shaded bench that would be facing the garden, but would love to incorporate that into the plan. I think we can get a specific mock-up of what that might look like.
I know in IU, the benches are like $3,000.
Yeah,
I have no
it's
idea what
true.
it's like for the city
Yeah.
requirements, but it might be similarly.
That's a good point.
But another option would be to leave a place that a bench can be
Yeah.
added in the future.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So, go ahead, Dara.
Oh, sorry. I have a related, I lied, I do have another question. It's somewhat related. So I'm familiar with this plot, and I think even in the photo, you can see evidence of like a desire path where people cut the corner there through the lot or come through the parking lot, come to get to the corner of 4th and Washington. Are there, related to the question of seating, is there plans for a path through it?
Yeah.
Mimicking some of those sort of like natural movements that are how people are already using the space?
Yeah, I love that. You see in that mock-up, I kind of threw one in there. Desire path, love that term and concept. Yeah, people are going to want to take the shortest path, through there. So when Andrew and I were looking at this, we definitely wanted to let people cut right through, because better that than trampling the garden.
What would that path be?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think just grass maybe, but that's a good consideration.
That would require mowing.
To mow it,
pretty
yeah.
routine.
Yeah. One other thing is you see that sculpture there. I reached out to the person who did that. It's a architect professor at IU, Lucas Brown. He won, I think, an art grant, and they had planted an white oak tree in the middle of that. That was part of like his vision. It was supposed to like funnel water to the tree or something. They planted 2 trees and they never took. And so when I reached out to them and said, hey, we're thinking about planting around this, are you okay with that? I said, sure, great. If you put a tree in there, that'd be awesome. And I said, well, it's a full sun garden, so that probably wouldn't happen. But just wanted to comment that there's a sculpture there. The person who did it is a local professor, Lucas Brown, and is aware and allowing for this. And I actually reached out to Haskell Smith to see if there's a new, recently a white oak tree that this could be with, because I think that was the original vision for that artist. Yeah.
I'll just throw out. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, in regards to the desire path, I also like that terminology. And this may be a question for Sean Mia, would that path need to be ADA compliant?
Great question.
So you talked to the Department of Engineering. Are there other city departments that would need to sign off on this? And Do you have pretty much agreement everywhere?
I met with David Hiddle in Plan Transportation. He generally was in favor of it. He said, "Sounds great. Keep me posted. Happy to help where I can." You know, Parks and Rec. I think I spoke with somebody in there. I need to go back. It's a big organization. This is went from being a side project to a little bit more involved. But Parks and Rec is aware of it. So is Planning and Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, as someone who works for the city, I'm not 100% sure, like, who is the person that needs to sign their name and be like, yes,
Yes.
we know this is what it's going to be used for.
Yep.
It sounds like it's just a very collective, like, yeah, this is great, and
Yep.
I think we're all on board as long as you have this, and this in place.
Yep.
But that final,
Yeah.
who's the final word, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and I think it needs to
Yeah.
all be kind of put into a formal approval, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
soft yeses, and I think it's
Mhm.
basically at that stage of like, can you secure the funding? Can you give us the exact design? We'll have somebody
Mhm.
officially sign off on it.
Yeah.
And one thing I didn't mention before is I'm hoping that this is a bit of a pilot program in a way. I think maybe a lot of you also look at, you see a beautiful kind of pollinator, these urban meadows, they're kind of being called now, and you see these beautiful gardens that are serving an eco benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget, there's some book called like Bringing Nature Home or something, right? And it's like, it's not just in these big parks that we want nature, we want these little pocket moments of nature. And I think hoping that this can be a pilot that, if successful, they go, okay, let's maybe find a few other little pocket areas of grass that should be more than just grass, could be a little bit good for the ecosystem, good for tourism, and just enjoyable to see.
Mm-hmm.
One thing with a lot of the native meadow species or grassland species or whatever is that come November they look,
Yeah.
it's like a 12-foot tall ironweed that's now
Yeah.
dead and broken in half. Does this guy, does he mow them? Does he, burning seems like a bit much to ask in this sort of space, but
I wish I had some photos in there. I mean, it's beauty can be subjective. He leaves them up, and there are a lot of textures and colors still, from the deadhead.
yeah, no, I think it's
Yeah.
cool and the bees love it and everything else.
Yeah.
But from the aesthetic perspective,
Yeah.
well, it looks beautiful in July. It doesn't necessarily look so
Yeah.
great in November.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, he leaves them up, and then in like late February, you kind of basically cut it all down.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you said that he did the Wonder Lab.
Master Garner's did that. He did First United
Okay.
Methodist
Okay.
Church, which is that. I don't know if I put. I don't know if I put that in
What's
there.
his name?
No, Andrew Mars with 2 R's. I did not put it in there. I think he also did John Hamilton's like house. Oh, yeah, it would be right there.
Right.
Yeah, I should have thrown it in there. Yeah, he did that study Bluestone. Yeah, right there is where he did it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bluestone on South Walnut, and then a lot of his work is actually like international as well.
Yeah.
He's getting asked to do work around, and yeah.
Well, we could take a look at what those look like in November to get a sense for.
Yeah.
I think probably we're not voting on this today, obviously, as you put more materials together to bring it for a vote. Seems like there might be, not just with us, but also with the city, somewhat of a chicken or the egg problem of part of his fee is designing it. And also everybody seems to be interested in what exactly is he gonna design before they give sign off on it. I don't know what flexibility we as a commission have. I think we talked about this last year about conditional sort of granting of funds or things like that, like we'll contribute if, conditional that the city allows it or something like that. That might be an avenue to explore. And then also anything, I think it strengthens your case with us and with the other people who have to get on board with it. Anything you can do to kind of set the parameters of exactly what he can design, exactly what, what's in and out of bounds, so that we don't have to have like the complete picture of this is exactly what it's going to look like, because I understand that's like a paid service.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything like that I think probably helps your case here and elsewhere.
Great point. Yeah, some conditional approval of funds would be great, because that's one thing that's kind of, there's this chicken of the egg in a way. Like they're like, we'll approve it if you have the funds, and people will give the funds if it can get approved. One full transparency, one of the challenges has been the list of approved perennial flowers on the UDO. That was originally, I think, created by like the MC Iris team or something, and their goal currently is 100% native to Indiana only. And apparently for most, and I'm not a gardener, I work in tech, and I just happen to be passionate about this space, so I'm learning a lot, and I'm really just kind of the mediator here fanboy of Great Gardens and saw this space, and now I'm getting more involved than I maybe should. But fascinating that most of these gardeners use a list that's a little broader. It includes like plants from like Kentucky, which are starting to become a little bit more native as summers get hotter. And so the current list is a little bit too tightly constrained. So we are wrestling with, that was something I didn't expect. I said, great, just submit the list. It just has to be plants only on the UDO perennial list. And he looks at that and he goes, half of these aren't even like available in nurseries. You know what I mean? Like they're just not commercially viable. There are also all these like hybrids and cultivars, a new term for me, that of the plant, but it's a cultivar. And he's like, is that allowed? Is it not? And there are, I guess, recent plantings of plants that aren't on the list. So it's this messy space of like what plants are okay and not. And he's obviously like, look, invasives are terrible. Absolutely no invasives, of course, but there's this middle ground. So that conversation is I think, still happening. It's like, can he do 70% native to Indiana and then like 30% native to the Midwest?
Well, from a commission standpoint, I almost feel like that conversation is even potentially more interesting and impactful as far as what we have a lever to do is put a resolution forward for the city to consider expanding that. This is a city list, right? This is the one that they're kind of a constraint the city puts on. Yeah, I mean, we have they don't have to take anything we say and do anything with it, but we have the ability to kind of pass resolutions for that. There's going to be a seat here on the commission that's opening up here soon. You should maybe consider applying to join again. That'd be a great resolution, I think, for the city too.
That'd be awesome.
I have no dog in the fight if it's a good argument or not. That the list should be expanded, but it sounds like something worth exploring for sure.
I agree.
I would highly suggest going to the Environmental Commission because they're the ones that deal with invasives. They're heavily involved in that type of stuff. So they would have a far, I'm going to make the assumption they're going to have a far greater depth of understanding and basic knowledge specific to that. But
I might have spoken. I've spoken with Rachel Johnson. I'm not sure is she in that department.
Rachel Johnson's the environmental planner, and she is the staff liaison for the Environmental Commission. So
So he gave, and not to belabor this, but he gave me a list of like the recent plantings that he's used. He said, look, this is what I did at First United Methodist. And she takes that list and just looks at like uplants.gov or something and sees like state of origin or something. And if it says Indiana, they're approved. If not, no. But there's some soft gray zone of the adjacent states. But again, these kind of cultivars and hybrids gets messy. So would be an interesting case for this committee to kind of potentially broaden that for more heat tolerant plants, et cetera.
Do you know if there's any avenue for like an exception for a particular project?
There is. It does say in the UDO you can apply for a particular approval. So I followed up with David Hiddle for a second time, and I think we're trying to meet with him next week of like, we're hitting this bridge here. Is this something that could be given special approval for this case? I know the UDO process is like happening right now, I think, with the city, and so it's in July. I think they review the UDO again, so could be quick enough to get it in there, or we'd have to wait all the way to next year. So special approval might make sense now.
I'm going to jump in here. I do work with plants, usually food plants, but not exclusively. And I totally understand about the cultivars. That is part of my world on a daily basis, including today in a presentation. I would say, since it would take a lot of time to go through this, and given the wonkiness of our weather, for lack of a better term, it's basically our jet stream and everything is wonky from climate change. It makes it really, really difficult to know how things are going to move. It's hitting like food right now for local growers. It's been a very difficult spring, but it's true for all plants. And I would suggest a special consideration. This would be something, I also agree with my fellow commissioner, for the Environmental Commission. When I think about this, it's a daunting task. I could work on a list, but we're talking about many, many hours. Now, you're in tech, maybe AI could be able to sort through some of this, or other knowledge, folks of knowledge and MC Iris could maybe lead some of this. But even when, I can't remember which city, this was before I was on the commission, with the trees that were going to be planted, and I know it was from the previous administration. And I wanted to make sure that the trees, whatever oak trees, were going to be viable from the southern, more southern zones. So the growing zones, can the growing zone 7, plants? Because we are on the cusp of, we've gone and moved from 5B, 6A, we're now 6B, and it's moved pretty quickly. I'm not sure when we will get to 7A. And therefore, having that plant list would be really valuable, but it would also be very time consuming. So a special approval, I think, is very apt and probably needed to possibly lead the way in making any kind of changes.
That's helpful, thank you.
Kara's got her hand raised. Kara?
Yeah, one other thing that I think would be like a potentially helpful product of this grant, and I don't know if it's the kind of thing that you would like include some extra funding to produce, would be maybe like a roadmap of how to do this to the point of it being a pilot project, because there are all of these departments that need to be involved, and especially, I mean, and maybe like this is the roadmap if you're dealing with city property, this is the roadmap if you're dealing with a private property, but because you have done all of this legwork of figuring out like who's the office to call, and I know that there's never a one path that somebody could exactly replicate, but I think documenting and having that as a product, as a grant, would go a long way for it being a really solid pilot, because you have done so much work that somebody else doesn't need to reinvent all of that process, and then maybe we can get the next one through more quickly, potentially.
Yeah, great idea, I love that.
We've got Zero online, and then we'll go to you after that, John.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of overlap with what we're doing with the Red Bud Garden that has pollinators space, and I'd like to work with you, Dave. I think what we should do, I mean, this is working group grants is technically what these are. I think we should form this as the Urban Wildlife Working Group, because you're kind of, it's providing for pollinators. If you could incorporate things like bee hotels and that sort of thing, whether or not you do any green building or, how the bench would go, that's a different thing. But if we form an Urban Wildlife Working Group and start working with you on that, and again, also it is a good idea to sort of document this process and all that's involved for future projects, create a kind of a document that people could go by thereafter. And I think one way to maybe approach this would be if it were put under Parks and Rec, declared a pocket park, then it would come under their maintenance. And they've done that with, like, there's some woods out on the west edge of town is commuted by Parks and Rec. They've done that kind of thing in other instances that I've seen.
Love that, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, a lot of this might fall under the Environmental Commission, but there are definitely aspects that are broader than that, depending on how they think about it. The availability, but like, can you actually buy this stuff? There's a lot of interesting ecological stuff about, like, okay, you're gonna be native to Indiana, but if it's going from Minnesota to Texas, what cultivars are you actually buying? Is everybody just getting a Texas one, thinking it's native to Indiana? It's like, yeah, it kind of is. And there could, I think, be both looking at the list, and I know the MCIRS folks a bit that probably put this together, and they're open to these questions of climate change and species movements and whatnot. I think they'd be open to working on this more. Their focus is more invasives, but they're good botanists. And then thinking about, like, is there a way we could turn this into a resource for people to say, like, okay, here's priority. Here's where you can buy Indiana cultivar species. Here's where, like, well, it's not invasive, it's kind of native, but like, priority list explaining the benefits of this. I don't know. I don't know what resources are available locally. I do at kind of the state level, but it seems like that could be a pretty cool project that could come out of this question, kind of address the city regulations as well as producing something that is more useful for the public, especially as some of these questions of like, okay, well, the white oaks don't work like they used to, but the swamp mites might, and yeah, I don't know.
Making this educational, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where it also becomes more of a question of sustainability as well, of making sure we plant stuff that'll.
The social, the economic, the
Right.
you know, the viability. How do you actually do this in your garden? Do you
Right.
need to pay $20,000? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes in regards to plants, it's scale. So I do grow and sell plants, but my scale is quite small. Sometimes I'll do special orders. And I do believe that there is a business, it's not exactly open to the public, but sells to the public, south of town. I can't remember what road this person lives on. But it could be, I don't know if it's mostly woodland plants rather than prairie plants. I mean, it is a business opportunity for someone, because we've had various people coming in and out of that space. But some of it is difficult to keep a livelihood depending upon your scale. So for looking for Indiana natives like this, sometimes it's folks will find things at swap meets rather than actually purchases. So this is kind of a programmatic, I guess, decision of how to approach this and get the number of plants, or work with a business or nonprofit to produce what is wanted and needed in that space for aesthetics and environmental concerns.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, and also I think that's good to include a public education component. One of the things we're doing with this Earth and Bench, downtown garden that we're doing at Redbud is to have some informational space for the public, and and sort of a place-making thing, and we're wanting to sort of stitch a network of these type of places together, and that could sort of be in a network, like we have a map where people know where these different pollinator spaces are so they can go see examples. And if you have it framed in a way to where people can learn about what they can do on their property or in their yard as the component of that, with a little bit of a signage or whatever, and this kind of community component, just community awareness and places for people to meet, so like events at this location in the future as a park, as a venue, really as an outdoor venue about these issues, I think would be a good component to work in there.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So we're getting close to the bottom of the hour, so we'll probably wrap up here for now. Two more quick questions for you. Three, actually. Who's blasting the Offspring? Number one, if you can't quite get to the $20,000 limit, what's the plan? Is it just smaller area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then second, have you been in touch with the Environmental Commission?
I have to go back to my notes. I think so. I think the Department of Engineering, is that not in the Environmental Commission?
Planning and transportation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll circle back and make sure. Yeah, I think my action items here are going to be: does the path need to be accessibility approval? Can we get the Environmental Commission to sign off? Getting the specific designs, I think, or maybe there's a potential bench, and maybe indicating an educational signage. I'd love for you all if you could do that, and then also kind of a pocket park playbook, and I think positioning this to Parks and Rec as a pocket park, and see if they're Tim Street, is that right? I think if they're interested in doing that.
Maybe also talk to master gardeners if you
Yeah,
can, and just see
confirm
what
that.
Ideally, the city takes it over, but
Yeah.
what are the backup
Yeah.
options?
Great idea.
Well, the Environmental Commission, they would have working group grants similar to us as well, so it could be a
Right.
situation where you go pitch it to them for
Nice.
funding as well.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily need their approval, I don't think, like you would from the city, but they could, they'd essentially be like us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
if
Okay.
they're interested, they might have funding that they can also
Cool.
contribute. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Good to know.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming and
Yeah.
and walking us through that, and we'll stay in touch. And
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, hey, thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to resolutions. We don't have any. So then it brings us to the report from staff liaison. Did you have anything you wanted to report, Julie?
Yeah, sure. So I'm working on a plan for Zero in Bloomington challenge. We're doing a couple a year where we use the Zero in Bloomington platform to, bring residents onto it to learn about sustainability, and they can log their actions and kind of keep track using the platform. In the fall, we are planning a series of events that we would like to offer, roughly one per week in October, and we have working with Canopy Bloomington. It's kind of like bringing people who are participating in our challenge, just bringing them in and partnering with local groups that already do events, or just decide they sort of have a model for something that they do that is sustainability or environmental related. And it's just bringing people to them, so to speak, in this concentrated, just focused effort to allow people to get their hands dirty, so to speak, with sustainability. So, we've got one in the works with Canopy Bloomington at the end of October, and there's a few organizations that have expressed interest, such as the Bloomington Community Orchard, potentially the Waste Reduction District, and Mother Hubbard's Cupboard. So I'm just saying this because it's in early planning stages, but there could be opportunities for you all, even individually as commissioners, to just come out to those events if you'd like to have a presence or just join in on one of them. There's more to come on that, but it's just kind of a nebulous idea that we're forming for the fall. Let me know if you're interested. Follow up with me directly on that. And then I'll be at the farmers market on Saturday. I hope it doesn't rain too much. But Sean and I are planning a couple times this summer to have a table at the farmers market as well. Just I've had a couple Bloomington Green Home Improvement applicants who have found out about that program via the farmers market when she was there previously. So just continuing our outreach efforts through that as an example, continuing to flesh out social media and really try to keep that more active. And I went to a conference last week, which was very interesting, the Midwest Regional Sustainability Summit by Green Umbrella in Cincinnati. And I would just recommend anyone here, if you can, to have that on your radar for next year, because it's just a day. So it's very, manageable as far as a conference goes in Cincinnati. It's not too far away, and it just has a ton of information. I particularly enjoyed it. Rumpke was there actually, and I can't remember who it was, the leader in the organization, but just speaking very enthusiastically about updates to recycling processes and things they have available for communities in that area that are,
Did they update anything about the Hefty, the orange bag?
I learned about that there, yes, the Hefty orange bag for the Renew program, which is very, very interesting opportunity to make it easier for people to recycle soft plastic. Hard to recycle soft plastic. So there's also, I learned about this app called the Make Soil app for decentralized community programming around food waste drop-off, which was, pretty cool to learn about. And I think entry level, you can just kind of sign up your community and start logging places where you can drop off food. Now, Cincinnati itself uses that more structurally because they have a kind of a decentralized food waste compost program that I learned about. That was super interesting. So, I just wish we had 5 people in my office, because I would totally put someone on developing a program the way Cincinnati would. So very inspiring.
What was that conference called?
So it was the Midwest Regional Sustainability Summit, and Green Umbrella is the host.
Okay.
That's all I have personally. If any of you have questions on something Sean might be able to answer to, feel free to let me know today, and I can bring it back to her.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Is the Sustainable Neighborhoods grant up on the website yet?
Oh, thanks for bringing that up. We're very close to launching that. I think by the end of the month, we've gotten department review, controller review, legal review at this point of that, and we've got the application is basically just waiting to press a button to open, and yeah, just kind of gotten one of the final approvals on that today. So yeah, we'll be able to open that very soon, and I'll send you all an email when we do, to let you know when it's ready.
Awesome, thanks. Let's see, no more hands. Okay. All right. Well, geez, we got 5 whole minutes before the thing ends. So there's a thing on here for member announcements. Does anyone have anything they want to announce to the rest of the commission? Preferably something germane to sustainability.
In or out of official sustainability business, would love to connect with folks about, so my kid gave a public comment at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm working with her Girl Scout troop to develop a patch activity for like a civics patch for writing and delivering public comments before Bloomington commissions. So,
That's awesome.
just like in general, if like scouting is your forte and you'd like to help me with that, I would welcome the help. It's not a thing I'm doing. It's a thing I'm doing as a parent, not as a commissioner. But I haven't done patch activities before. So.
That is awesome.
And she's coming back in July. Hopefully, she's written another one.
Oh,
so.
great! That's excellent. Did she get the patch retroactively if it ends up going through?
I think so.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, my org, Blue Bee, we're designing and proposing a garden for Southern Knoll apartment complex here at the edge of Prospect Hill. And there is also a meeting space at the same site where we're going to be putting in some garden beds, hopefully once we run this through the management. I'm not sure about
The suspense.
Yeah, I know. Oh, what? All right.
Justin, when you host up, do you do the Zoom thing just through your laptop, or is that something that requires the library?
What, for these
We're
meetings?
just-
Or?
We're on a city computer,
Working group.
hardwired in as far as I know.
Yeah, you cut out for a while there, so I'm not, are you asking about at these business meetings here in City
Yeah.
Hall?
So like in a working group for the public access component with
Oh,
Zoom,
gotcha.
that's just you typing
So,
it on the laptop?
yeah, what I've done for our working sessions is I've used Google Meet, and when I put out the notice, I just include the link to that. So I think as long as you have something that's publicly accessible and we can include that link when the notice gets posted, you should be good to go.
Yep, should work then.
Cool. Thanks. And let's see. I've got something from, oh yeah, go ahead.
I've been working a lot on a food resilience document, and it's quite lengthy. About 25 pages, and it's going to be a bit longer. So just kind of a heads up, if you see something from me on the agenda, it will be lengthier. And as I mentioned earlier, there's some time-sensitive information that's going to be on there. So if anyone wants some heads up before that, happy to get some involvement.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that, Jamie, as we've somewhat discussed. And yeah, you might mention that that's to do with the council coming back in a session in July, and you're trying to meet their schedule, right?
That's partly it. There's a lot of, in regards to food resilience, and without going into a lot of detail, there are a lot of federal grants which have been lost. One of them is the LFPA grant, which had provided a lot of food to our local food banks. This kind of diversity grant. I personally know farmers who were relying on that for a lot of their income. So this is where it gets to be Bloomington and Monroe County. But there are some grants that have come back online or that have deadlines. So to me, any kind of food resilience goals, we just passed a deadline, looking at my calendar. We just passed a deadline for 2 of them at the beginning of this month. The longer we go without hearing this and getting some kind of approval, the less likely we are to be able to apply to these grants in a timely way, given the uncertainties at the federal level. That this seems very relevant and important to meet any kind of planting goals, resilience goals in regards to food, to be able to provide for a population, whether it's a federal decision to get rid of certain grants, or if that is jobs being lost to AI. So that's already happening in some fields, in white collar, blue collar, in various locations. So this is something I'm just wanting to give a heads up because it is a very large thing that I've been working on since about February. And if anyone wants to see that, give comments, I'd love to have the input to be able to refine it.
All right, well, we'll definitely get on the agenda for next time. So yeah, send me anything that I need to know for that. And we are past 7:30 now, so we are adjourned at 7:31.